Okay, welcome to this episode of the Lake Effect Podcast, Barry and Muskoka's fine home building podcast and discussion forum. Today we have with us Brody Harrington, who's from Euroforge Architectural Products, based out of Vaughan. You've got 3 locations all across Canada, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Pleasure to be here. I'm representing Euro Architectural Components. We're based out of Vaughan, headquartered in Vaughan. We have locations in Montreal as well as Calgary, so we try and service the whole of Canada. We sell into the U.S. as well, but the major market is Canada.
Okay, so if a very quick review of your product offering or what portion of the business you're serving.
Yep.
Just using your website as a base here. You do products for glass railings, interior railings, exterior railings, pool fencing, shower systems. Fencing in general, gates, balconies, and miscellaneous glass and forged. Is it forged products? Or?
Yeah, so the forged products is what we were founded on. We were founded in 95 by Henry Mercica, who is from Malta. He learned the trade in Malta from his father and brought that here. So he originally started bringing castings in from Italy, China, many places kind of across the world. And that's really where we got our start. We kind of slowly expanded into interior stairs, so painted balusters, painted pickets, is where we really kind of expanded beyond what we were originally for. And then after that grew, we ended up getting into stainless and glass kind of product. It seemed to be kind of taking over the market, which it obviously has, so in hindsight was a great decision. And kind of just rolled with the punches from there. Obviously, we've tried to maintain certain things, but the way that trends go, you kind of have to go with them. And
okay, so the products that you're selling in general, they're for use interior and exterior.
Yep.
Most of your product is brass and stainless steel, I would assume.
The vast majority, right? Shower hardware is almost always brass and then plated in some form, and then most exterior stainless product. Yeah.
For the benefits of the architects, engineers, homeowners, general contractors who hopefully are watching this podcast, your product is normally. It would be the hardware or what's referred to as hardware through the various trades. So the staircase guys would have stair hardware. The railing guys would have railing hardware.
Absolutely.
Us, Accurate Glass, we would have glass railing hardware or glass shower hardware.
Yeah, we try and cover every aspect of especially the stair and railing kind of industry. We try and cover every style that you can possibly find, so that even cable railing and things like that. There's lots of different ways that people can install railings, and we try and cover it all.
Okay, so being from Accurate Glass Products and buying your materials, using your materials, knowing that the Canadian market is also price conscious, we found it buying product from you is a good balance between quality, design, and price. Is that where you're aiming? Because you're hitting it for us.
Absolutely. No, I think the key for us is. Quality is always key. We founded our business on quality. We kind of make sure that that's our priority in everything. Pricing is something that we work on in order to maintain as close to we can as kind of the average in the industry at any given time. For us, pricing is mostly about being at least competitive, but offering beyond just price. We like to believe that we're a full service company. We offer there's lots of outside sales reps, me being one of them, as well as interior sales reps that are vastly knowledgeable. We maintain training at high levels constantly. People are trained multiple times a month on different product lines, different things like that. So we like to think that we can offer beyond price in order to find that middle ground.
I would tend to have to agree with you. I mean, one of the reasons we decided to bring you to the podcast, we have a lot of options, and we do. I mean, we have other suppliers that we support. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Yeah.
But we found that some of the let's call it the monopolies of the past or the recent past or companies who were monopolizing the market were getting more and more difficult to deal with. Their price levels remained high, but the quality of the product they were began to drop, and you were paying top dollar but not getting that. Then you had other entrants into the market who were basically, let's say, some of our direct competitors who are importing, low quality product.
Yep.
And it may appear the same, but its function in your home, in your cottage, it doesn't remain the same after a couple years. And
Absolutely.
we can go into some of the things to look for, later in the podcast. So let's go to the pictures, because I'm sure that anybody who's watching this wants us to jump to pictures pretty fast. If you can switch to our screen here, we've got, so the first picture it looks like it's overlooking a city skyline, and it's a base shoe with a cap rail on frameless glass.
Absolutely. So this is a key product line of ours. It is viable commercially. It's viable residentially. For when it comes to decks, it's great, especially wood decks. It kind of tends to restrict some of that water flow. So when you have a wood deck, you're often able to have some flow below it. So it's very good for your decks.
Okay, so if you put this, so the picture that we're viewing here is a base shoe black marina JPEG.
Yeah,
and it looks like it would be sitting on something that's probably a concrete.
Yeah, exactly. So concrete is obviously the best thing to adhere to with something like this. It's always the strongest. Really with these is we try and offer something that can be installed really anywhere that you need it.
Okay, so back to your point. If you put this on a wood deck, on the edge of a wood deck, what you want to avoid is trapping of water and moisture and getting eventually rot underneath the base shoe.
Absolutely.
Does this product offer weepers or some way of?
Absolutely. So basically, if you're concerned about something like that, basically what you do is you use what we call a drain block. It's a simple block. It's about a half-inch thick, and it goes under every fastener location, which then lifts that base shoe up, leaving kind of a gap below the base shoe for water to run through.
Is this included in the kits when you sell the?
Absolutely.
Okay, so again, for the GCs or the tradespeople who are installing this, when you order base shoe like this, what do you get?
So they come in kits. Basically what we've tried to do is make it as easy as possible, so you're not going, I need 12 of these and 16 of those. So what we do is every 10-foot length comes with 10 fastener holes and 10 grips. So the grips themselves are what are actually holding the glass, allows you to tilt the glass, allows you to move the glass and kind of level things out after putting the glass in. So you get 10 of those. Usually it's somewhere between 3 and 5 per panel. It depends how many panels you're putting in, of course. Then you get your end caps, and you get 2 lengths of cladding that cover each side.
Okay, so when you apply this to wood as opposed to concrete, you have the drain blocks.
Yep.
They come in the kit. You just leave them out.
Yeah. So most people that would do that, they would basically, you would line them up on the fastener holes themselves, and then you would just place your base shoe on top and drive through. There's a hole meant for that.
What thickness of glass does this?
So it kind of covers a wide range. We the lowest we want to go is 12 mil. 12 mil monolithic tempered is really the minimum strength level you want in a glass railing. You can go 10 mil in some cases, but we try not to recommend that. 12 mil is by far stronger. And so we focus on 12 mil. That's the main lines, the M3 and the M2 being a low profile option. But we also offer basically everything from 12 up to 26.52 laminate.
Okay, so that would be you'd vary. I mean, cottage owners are pretty much going to use 12 mil.
Yeah, absolutely.
You might find the odd person who wants like super safe, the money's no object type of customer, and they'll do laminated, 6-on-6 or 8-on-8, something like that in glass, and so you end up at 16 millimeter.
Exactly.
And something like 24.5 millimeter, you'd probably see at like at an airport.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a high security type of
airports, subway stations, things like that.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's switch to the next picture here. So the good description of base shoe and the base shoe product, of course, which has a cap rail. We'll circle back to the cap rails. So the next picture is looks like maybe the entrance to a condo building or an apartment building. with posts, Z clamps, and top rail. This is, I assume this product is probably replacing what used to be welded stainless steel.
Absolutely, yeah. Welded stainless is usually most common there, but we're seeing a shift especially towards black. Black stainless seems to be really taking over the industry, and so we want to offer a post system that can cover that. Basically, this post system is what we call our elite post system. It comes in 3 different lines. There's the H1, the H2, and the F1. The F1 being a frameless without a top cap, which seems to be a very popular way of doing things, especially for cottages and things like that. It'll give you a much crisper, cleaner view.
Is it on clamps like this?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's the same system, just without that top piece. We offer an interior one, which is a little bit lower profile, a smaller plate, so that it can accommodate better towards your interior stairs, where you may have less room on your treads than you will on an outside stair. So that one is slightly less, and that one uses 10 mil glass, so it lowers your cost even a little bit more. And then I have that option exterior, which can be used with 10 mil or 12 mil. We still recommend 12 mil in any case. 12 mil is much stronger, and just generally.
So why the shift, especially in exterior application, why the shift from welded stainless to this? I assume it's because this comes in more a kit form.
Absolutely.
Where you're making cuts and bolting connections, as opposed to getting, a finished patio with maybe a wheelchair ramp.
Exactly.
And then sending somebody out to measure, and then going to a stainless steel welding shop and welding the top. The adaptation to this has got to have something to do with the reduction in labor.
Absolutely. I think the biggest key is the change in the industry is to be more accessible to more people. Stainless steel welding is high skill, right? It is a very high skill procedure, basically. Basically, you have limited welders that can do stuff like that. And so their costs are high, which means that welding stainless steel in forms like that tends to come out even more expensive than glass.
Is it kind of I'm aware of a few stainless steel guys. There's one here, a great guy actually here locally, but he's doing everything. Like, it's not like he's not busy. He's doing, like hoops for the back of boats. Yeah, at any kitchen stuff.
See, those guys come at they're a top tier commodity, right? And so they come at a high price, and you may not get it done as quickly as you want to. This system basically allows you to put most of these things together with a stainless steel glue. It's a 2-part glue. Basically, uses one side on your entry point and one side on your on the other side. And basically, when it comes together, within 5 to 10 minutes, it's solid, and you cannot get it out. It is extremely, extremely strong.
So the picture I'm looking at is what material is.
So the black is stainless steel 304 powder coated in satin black.
That's powder coated stainless steel?
Yes. So it's black powder coated, or it's stainless steel below and then powder coated over top.
How does that stick for 30 years?
So usually the stainless steel is conditioned in a way so that the paint adheres much better, especially with exterior application. So what ends up happening is, vast majority of the time, they'll use some kind of sanding technique, basically, to grind that stainless down.
Isn't that why all DeLoreans were never painted?
Yeah.
Because paint won't stick to stainless steel.
Exactly. When you have a really smooth stainless steel, there's nothing for it to adhere to, right? It's the same concept as glass, really, right? You can't paint on glass because it won't adhere to glass because it's too smooth a surface. So you have to kind of rough up that surface. So below if you removed that paint, it wouldn't be the same finish as our stainless finish.
What's the warranty on the finish?
Pretty well unlimited. We really try and cover our product as long as we possibly can. We've had some that have been 5+, 6+, 7+ years. We don't see them very often, but
maybe you're like us. So at Accurate Glass, we have an official warranty. If you go to our website, you find in terms and conditions, and on the same one on our invoices, I think it's 1 year for workmanship, 3 years for hardware. But the truth is, we've been in business a long time. Our company's been around, really the roots of the company come from 1969.
Yeah.
And if we get a call for a shower that's 10 years old and we go there and we're like, yeah, it's been 10 years, the material's going to wear out over time.
Yep.
It's probably exceeded its lifetime by 5 years because you took care of it, or, but if there's a workmanship issue, it's peeling away from the wall or something, then we'll fix it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Just to maintain our reputation and connection to the community, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the key for us is maintaining relationships with contractors, with homeowners as well, is knowing that their product that's been installed is going to be covered, but as much as possible.
That's a good idea. So we'll go to the next picture. So this is an absolutely beautiful. I don't recognize the picture, so I don't know if it was us.
I believe it was.
Was it us that installed this? Really?
I believe so.
Oh, that's beautiful. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's one of our competitors, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you sell product to other people, but this is what we do in our industry. This picture, it's called Standoff's Innovative Metal Works, is how the title of the picture. And this is a very good example of where your company provides an exceptional product coordinated with our schedule, our schedules and coordinators, our designers, our salespeople, and our installers. We get out, we get the job done, and then this is, you snap the picture at the end. Our guys are very, very proud of their work when they accomplish something like this. We take a photo of it, we publish it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's and then the homeowner can, it's like a showpiece. You get something like this. It's not just for the homeowner, but whoever did the tile in this case is showing off their stuff.
Absolutely.
I always said that glass is kind of like a gloss, right?
Yep.
Is you put a beautiful color on a car or something, but then you got to clear coat it.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
So glass is almost like a clear coat or a sheen that goes on top of everybody else's work.
Absolutely.
And in of itself, it can also be that requires some talent and strength and.
Absolutely. It tends to embolden the other aspects of a home, right? Because it doesn't take too much of the kind of pop away from that. Having a clear kind of look through your railing, you end up highlighting the other aspects of your home. So you highlight the color of your siding, the color of your trim, that kind of stuff. It ends up complementing many aspects of your home.
Yes.
Now, like you said, this style of installation is absolutely something to be proud of. Installers doing stuff like this is one of the more intricate and harder to plan out styles of railing there is.
Okay, so maybe there's, we're going right into a level 2 podcast, let's say. If I ask you questions like, how are those corners put together? How is that end capped? What's the strength of the handrail is very interesting in this case from an installation standpoint. So is that sleeves? Is that sleeves or is that welded, or how are you making those corners?
Most of the time they're sleeved. The vast majority of the time, you'll see some people weld them. But the vast majority of the time, you sleeve them. It just makes it a lot simpler for you.
So I'm looking at this picture, Standoff's Innovative Metalworks, this beautiful staircase. I've noticed quite a few things on the staircase, including the corners they look very clean, very seamless. Yeah. But there is a seam. They're cut like with a miter and then sleeved in with glue or screws.
So it's usually a glue. You basically get a receiving end on both. There is a seam, but it ends up machined so well that you don't really notice it from a distance.
Okay, these days, do we have to question glue like we used to, or
not really? The glue has come a long way.
Can I give you an example from another industry? So a very good friend of mine runs a body shop for Fath Motors.
Okay, yeah.
And he's been at this for many years. And top tier guy. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I walked into his aluminum shop. He's got other shops there where they're fixing $400,000 Porsches, this kind of thing. Yep. And they're not using the same techniques. It used to be that there was, a set of techniques they used just to pump out damaged cars, and then the really high-end stuff they'd bring in like some old school, guy who was working with lead and this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But finally, after 60, 70 years of, progress, not that those skills are not valuable, but those methods have been superseded by people who have spent a lot of time, in a laboratory, trying to figure out how to make better products, better glues, better things.
Absolutely.
A lot of the technology that we've experienced in our lifetime, in my opinion, came out of the period between 1939 and 1945.
Absolutely.
Right, where everybody just had their foot on the gas. They were trying to make something better so they could pump out war materials and have a war.
Absolutely.
And then the spin-off, like for the next 20 years, was trying to adapt to some of those military technologies to consumer goods. Okay. And then, also the laboratory system and the system of study, of metals, of glues, of science in general, kept progressing.
Absolutely.
Then, I don't know what do you think drove it? In the last 10 or 15 years, we've just taken a few more giant leaps as if we had a war, but we didn't. And now you got these incredible glues that can. You could 25 years ago, you could not glue two ends of a handrail together
Absolutely.
and then send your grandmother down the staircase.
Yeah, for sure. I think, and obviously there's political aspects to it, but I think the key is war drives innovation. For the last 80 years, we've basically coasted off of the achievements in World War II. The Cold War
more ways
also
than one.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Cold War also fueled that, right? And I think we have to see it as we are somewhat in a new Cold War. For the last 20 plus years, the war on terrorism, the war in Russia, tensions with Russia throughout the 20th century.
Okay, so I've always promised never to go too far down that road on this podcast. So this is really a war on slipping and falling.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I think it's a part of it, right? I think really the drive for innovation in different, especially in mechanical and in material-based technologies, has really pushed from that point, because it's a race to see who is the best nation on earth.
Okay, so what we're trying to do here, really, in having this discussion, is prove to whoever's watching the podcast that glue as a technology does work. You can use it with confidence. You don't have to worry about safety.
Absolutely.
I've been to your shop, and I know that you do your own product testing as well as outsourcing testing.
Yep.
So before we skip off of this slide, talk about the testing. These I've met the engineer actually who designed your standoffs.
Yeah, so Ali Ravon, he's our engineer, research and development. He's developed a lot of our systems. We do in-house testing on everything. So we try and go above and beyond, and we test beyond failure to see what's our maximum capacity, how can we basically find a middle ground to be above what code wants, but not we don't want our systems to be at the close to the point of fail.
My son works on airplanes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I work with him sometimes, and he's adopted this sort of saying from some of the guys who are working on airplanes with him. And you'd think airplanes are like kind of the top level of consumer safety available.
Yeah.
And what he always says, he said, this is not going to the moon.
Yeah.
We're not sending this airplane to the moon.
Exactly.
And so there is a point at which things become so, analysis paralysis, or whatever you want to call it, where you're spending too much time and not just this will work for this application.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let me jump, because people don't want to pay, for the very best thing on the planet. All right, so we're going to jump to the next slide. It's top mount spigot base 2.
Yep.
Okay. So what this is looks like 12 mil glass on a balcony. Looks like it's about 3 or 4 stories up, and the spigots. We could talk about spigot spacing, in the technical section, but it's also got a very discreet top rail with 2 holes at the top of the glass. And I think a lot of designers, a lot of homeowners, when they're looking at plans or even standing, at a completed deck trying to decide what to put for top rail, or for railings rather, they always miss the opportunity to put a very functional and what I'd call discrete top rail. Now, whether it's required by law or not required, we can talk about that after. But when I'm looking at this picture, this is what I did in my place. Okay, so I wanted that fully frameless look. I wanted the minimum hardware.
Exactly.
Okay, I went with spigots. Spigots are very, they can be very attractive. These ones are the adjustable spigots.
Yeah, this is our adjustable tilt lock line, so it just allows a simple adjustment to level your glass after installation.
Okay, so that would apply, on any concrete, steel, wood.
Absolutely.
They're never perfectly level over a 10, 20, 30-foot span.
Absolutely. So as any person in construction will know.
Okay, so the tilt lock versus just a standard spigot and then you're shimming the spigot, basically.
Exactly, right. The standard spigots do have some adjustment in that they have the set screws at the bottom of your basically your base plate. And that allows some adjustment after installation. Now, it's a very minor adjustment in comparison. This is about 2.5 degrees that it gives you, I believe upwards of 3, which ends up at multiple inches, being able to move it at the top of the rail.
Okay, so so the adjustment must come at a cost.
Absolutely. So you're definitely going to be spending a little bit more with these. It is relatively minor, so you're going to be spending anywhere from 20 to 40% more, depending on your on how you want to do it. So I have multiple different styles of this.
Okay, so let's think about it from a homeowner perspective.
Yeah.
So I'm hiring a glass company. Okay, sorry, I'm hiring a general contractor.
Yep.
Who's hiring a glass company.
Yep.
And then the glass company's giving us the price, and they give us one price that has a standard spigot that can be shimmed and an adjustable spigot. What is the argument to the homeowner to use the tilt lock?
So the tilt lock spigot itself is stronger. It's a heavier spigot. It tests better. It tests to higher kilonewton loads. There is very minimal deflection, and that's based on it being basically a wider, kind of a wider space to put your glass into. So which kind of allows it a little bit more deflection without actually influencing the structure of the spigot. It can also accommodate thicker glass, right? The thicker glass is always stronger, so it can accommodate up to about 5/8 glass.
Okay. So the tilt lock version of the spigot is the upscale.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the top rail. So I elected to have, the reason I chose a top rail on mine, because I did something very similar like this on mine, is number one, I wanted all the pieces to be tied together.
Yep.
Because I was in a high wind load area.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's number one. Number two is I wanted a place where I could get the full view and I could see everything, but at the same time, if I wanted to hang towels,
Yep.
or somebody walks up to it, they have something to lean on.
Absolutely.
Is that a choice that people are making more or less?
It is very, very common. Basically, in the last 3 to 4 years, we've seen off-glass style brackets kind of explode in popularity. So this style of system where you have that handrail, basically what ends up happening is most of those rails are going to be to 42-inch, right? But you usually want a handrail at 36-inch. That's the most standard kind of handrail height, and it's more comfortable for your hand in terms of most people. It's at a more level, hip kind of location, and that makes it a little bit easier for them. So this kind of combines the ability of being able to go to 42-inch to cover that code requirement for an exterior rail, and then have a 36-inch handrail that's on the interior of that rail and runs along those off-glass brackets.
Okay, so before we jump from here to the technical section, I'll say this. So when we, through our sales process at Accurate Glass Products, and I'm sure other folks who are shopping in to do exterior railings in the Muskoka and Barrie area, when they call us, what we do is, as of the last couple years, we're presenting them with a list of, exterior glass comes in a multitude of sort of price levels and quality levels.
Absolutely.
So at the very top, we do something we call Muskoka glass, which is just a combination of some elective components within the market. So number one is we're using your Euroforge high-end tilt lock spigots.
Yep.
We're using either laminated glass or a monolithic tempered 12 mil or greater in Starfire or low iron. Starfire is a brand name, but it's also OptiWhite.
Yep.
Okay, OptiWhite, Starfire, or low iron glass.
Hey, Kleenex is a brand name, but nobody knows that.
It's not sold here anymore.
Yeah.
So we'll also put a diamond fusion coating, which we call AccuShield.
Yeah.
Okay, which is like it's a nano surface treatment, kind of like Rain-X.
Yep.
And then we'll use a handrail on the top or a cap rail, depending on what the customer's preference is, and that to us is that's where the top of the top end product that's available in this marketplace. Okay, you can still get, and we're not going to try and dissuade customers who, let's say, they want to measure and install themselves.
Yep.
They're interested in just buying, cutting the price down, basically, supplying their own labor.
Yep.
You now offer something in that range, I understand.
Absolutely. I mean, most of these systems can be adapted into multiple ranges. Now, this is a higher range spigot, of course, but we offer kind of the standard 6-inch, 8-inch, and I also offer a cheaper alternative to this one, which is a very similar design, has the capability to take an LED system in order to illuminate your glass panels, but it comes at a lower cost than your standard adjustable. It's slightly less adjustable, it's slightly smaller, but it's very much the same concept. So we have kind of different options at different price ranges.
Okay, so I'm just trying to make the market, whoever's going to watch this to this point, understand that there's like for us, for Accurate Glass, we want to supply and install, custom measure. We're going to be at the higher end of the price range. We will install. We have some mid-range product too. Some of it's Euroforge's product, being just like you said, standard spigots. But we're still custom measuring the glass, but this won't necessarily be low iron glass, or with a cap or a handrail included. And then below that, I mean, what I know that you guys don't sell, and we'll segue here into the technical side of things. What I know that you guys don't sell is the spigots that look the same, but their material cost is much lower because the quality is much lower. It's
absolutely
4 tack welds, okay, and the key for people to remember is there's nothing that Euroforge sells that's designed to take one hit.
Yeah,
okay?
absolutely.
And you've explained that to me, and
absolutely.
Let's bring that out.
So basically, what we're talking about here is kilonewton loads. That's how they measure the strength of glass railings. And so the way they do that, like 1 kilonewton is 225 pounds. It's basically equivalent to a 225-pound person falling into the handrail or into the railing itself. So the way we test most requirements of the OBC is 1 kilonewton with a 1.5 safety factor, meaning that that's basically for wind load, for any other extra factors, which means that you test to 1.5 kilonewton. We test every system to 3 kilonewton without deflection. Deflection being the glass panel actually pushing to the side, right? Under load, of course, there's going to be some deflection. But when that load comes off, ideally what you want is there to be zero permanent deflection.
Okay, so the example that I've given, because I've had this conversation with customers on the phone, if you buy, you go to the home show, you get your $110 a linear foot stuff, glass, prefabricated glass panels. You got to make the sizes work. You get these spigots that look essentially the same as yours. Who knows how long they're going to last, but you put those up on your deck, or your general contractor, or your laborers put it up, which a competent person can do. Measure and cut type of thing, right?
Absolutely.
Or measure and drill rather. Can't cut glass. So you install that, and then your grandkids come over on Saturday morning, and they're running full steam, and they hit they go full tilt into your deck railing, okay, and it takes that one hit. That's fine. Then Sunday morning, your other kids come over, your second set of grandkids come over, and they do the same thing. You're now into the second hit.
Exactly.
Okay, and then you hit it with you're moving your picnic table at the end of the season and putting it away. You hit it with your picnic table. People lean against it. You're taking all these exposure to loads.
Exactly.
Your stuff is designed to take multiple hits.
Absolutely. Basically, what you want is to be able to take a hit and it come back to its starting point without any structural damage to the actual spigot itself, or whatever hardware it is. The key is that because there's no permanent deflection, there's no structural damage. So it can take that same hit as if it were the first hit again. If there is permanent deflection on that first hit, you are now at a worse starting point than you were before, which means your spigot is structurally unsound, right? And so that second hit could result in catastrophe.
Okay, so some customers, discerning customers who are looking for a high quality product, are not just looking for something that looks the same in a picture once at the very beginning of the build. You want to own that cottage or that house for many years. You want to know that the product is safe and it'll stand up to the test of time. And we appreciate that version of the market offering. I mean, there are many things you can offer to the market. That's the section of the market we want to appeal to, is the mid-range where the product is going to maintain its safety level for a long time.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to go to, we're going to do a little website exploration here.
Yeah.
If you're good with that, Kale. He can direct it to my screen here. So this is your website. It's Euro EAC. What is EAC?
It's just a short form for Euro Architectural Component.
Okay, so euroarchitecturalcomponent.com, and so euroeac.com. You've got some great stuff here. You can click into the glass railing systems, or just the general railing systems, fencing and gates. The interior railings, you got some highly ornate stuff.
Absolutely.
If I knew something about this stuff, I'd start asking you questions, but I think we'd have a 5-part podcast here.
Exactly.
Okay, so we kind of stuck to the glass railings because that's what I know. It seems your shower system, so you're bringing in some shower stuff these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pool fencing, pool fencing's a lot like glass. It's glass railing, but there's gates involved and that kind
of. There's gates. Depending on your municipality, obviously, there's going to be different restrictions on pool fencing. You have some municipalities that are much stricter. You have some that are a little bit more lax. Usually, what that means is your glass railings will have to be either 48 or 60 inch high. That's the vast majority of the time.
Okay, so I'm going to back up here. So if you're looking at Accurate Glass's website, as a lot of our customers are, so Kale, I'm going to go to our website here. So our website is split in half. You got the installation and our fabrication plant. You go to the installation, visit the site. So if you go to installation services, glass railings, you come to this page. The inspiration gallery right here. It slides you down to the bottom. Then you'll see all these pictures, these lovely pictures that we have. There's some pool gates, there's some standoffs. There's a couple projects I recognize. I remember being on some of these sites. Sure, our installers will for sure. Almost all of it is your product. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's some that isn't your. We use, admittedly, we use some of your competitors sometimes, depending on the spec and the price. There's a great standoff picture here. This is a great picture. I remember this one. It looks like it's glass connectors at the top. Yeah, standoffs off a deck with glass connectors at the top. Now, a lot of people want this look, and this is where we move into the technical side of this. Okay, so what is the story with the code? Where's the code? Where's it been? Where's the code at? And where's the code going? And let's focus this on Muskoka.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the keys in Muskoka is the fact that there is a vast need, not need, but want for frameless glass railings. Frameless glass being without a top rail, and so you have a clear view.
So if it was up to the homeowners and GCs, the glass would just be floating there in open space.
Absolutely, right? There would be no hardware at all. Yeah. But with frameless, there are issues in the code that we think will come down the line. One of the things that is within the glass code, but not within the OBC, is a code that basically says you need to have a continuous cap rail, something that is covering the top edge of that glass and continuing between two panels or more. Basically, what this means is you want to create a solid wall of that glass in order to handle that wind load as one. You can achieve this with the slim connectors as you showed.
Okay, so we'll jump back here for a sec. So on my screen here, I have a PDF that was supplied by you guys.
Yep.
I mean, it's up to people on their own. I mean, full disclaimer here. To interpret the code and understand what is a safe practice, people and making decisions, they need to look this up on their own.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's some code references, though, that we're going to include for the purposes of, entertainment, let's say, in this podcast. Part 9 building code and code requirements, which is residential. And, of course, some buildings are so big that they can no longer be Part 9 and they're Part 4.
Exactly.
Okay, so continuity of handrails. Now, one thing that you brought up that you've said that's worth of note here, if anybody who's doing a deep dive, is that most people, when they think about handrail and handrail code, what they think about is what I described before, is a bunch of people either overloading it by leaning on it or running into it with something or themselves. Exactly. What they don't think about is when they're not home and the wind is blowing and the wind load that that something's exposed to. The other thing is, I've gotten video before of glass just self-destructing because snow was building up on a deck that was poorly built and the deck was flexing.
Yep.
Okay,
exactly.
So you have these live loads that are or dynamic loads really that are not what you immediately, most people would immediately envision, which
Absolutely.
is somebody running into a handrail and saying, hey, it doesn't matter if it's continuous or not, because the one piece will hold me when I'm leaning on it.
Exactly. One of the big keys is that wind loads are kind of separated by region. Muskoka is a high wind load region, especially on lakes, right? Wind flies across the surface of lakes, and if you have a glass railing that's looking out onto a lake, you end up taking a high wind load. It's simple nature. And so one of the things you have to factor in is the fact that the glass panels themselves are going to take on that wind load. If they take them on individually, there's a higher chance of that glass panel breaking because of that wind load. When you have glass panels that are connected continuously, it enables those glass panels to take on the wind load together.
Okay, so I'm going to just fire some questions at you here, okay? So how many municipalities are there in Muskoka, approximately?
I believe there's 2.
Well,
municipalities or townships? Municipalities. There's 1, 2.
How many different
3
logos are there on the chest of the person who's going to come up to do your inspection? When she shows up or he shows up, how many different logos are there? Like 5, 10?
I think there's like 5. Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that.
Do they all make their own decisions independent? They all make their own interpretation of the code, right?
Well, they do. So you tend to see different areas have different restrictions. It's highly based on your inspector in any given area.
And their experience.
Absolutely. Right. So different things are done in different areas because inspectors allow those things in their areas. So one of the key ones is that Huntsville and the Huntsville area is usually a little bit tighter on wanting more engineering for their systems. They want
Some people
more technical data.
Might use the word more professional.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So you have areas that are like that, and you have areas where it's very lax, right? And you can kind of
Unincorporated townships.
exactly right. So you have different restrictions, and it's all going to be based on the inspector in your area.
So let's for argument's sake say that really the desire in Ontario. I mean, there's an overall desire out there right now, without getting political, for things to be accepted nationally. And we have a national building code.
Absolutely.
But currently it's under the jurisdiction of the Ontario Building Code, which has its revisions based on the experience within the group of body of people who work in that industry and for that, for the Ministry of Housing, I guess it is, that administers that.
Yeah.
Okay. And a desire for somewhat, you don't want things to be too rigid, but you want some flexibility so people can, do individual things that are suited to certain areas. But in general, I think we're moving towards a situation where things are more accepted uniformly, not just because of conditions in those areas, also because we have better communication systems. People
Absolutely.
can share large volumes of data with each other.
absolutely.
Have conferences.
One of the keys is that this is a newer industry. It's been around a long time, of course, but specifically glass railings in the last 10 years or so has really exploded onto the scene. And the OBC, the ministry has both nationally and provincially have not really fully caught on yet.
Okay, so I'd love to do a podcast where all we do is talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's a big issue in our industry.
Absolutely.
I think there's some companies who are like kind of playing by the rules.
Yeah.
And the word the cheapest is what you want good value for your money, but you don't want something that just looks good on day one and is going to fail.
Exactly.
From a structural standpoint. So we can dive deep. Let's just do the scrape of the surface right now. Cap rail or no cap rail, connectors or no connectors. What is generally accepted now and what's going to be accepted in a year or two from now?
So I would say currently you can still get, in certain areas, you can still get frameless railing and get it passed. We see it quite often.
With connectors.
With connectors. The vast majority of the time, the inspectors, no matter where you are going to want connectors.
Okay, so just for the viewers who are not fully educated, if they want to look up, if they go to Accurate Glass Products or they go to Euroforge, either of our websites, you'll find pictures with spigot railings and standoff railings where there's just one little black or sometimes brushed nickel, little, something about the size of let's say a smartphone, or half the size of a smartphone that connects one piece of glass to the other.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
they're
connectors. Go
usually
on.
just slim little connectors so that each panel is connected to each other. It's very basic. They're very low cost. It raises your costs very minimally a lot in terms of the grand scale of your project.
And your visual obstruction, which is why a
Absolutely.
lot of people choose it, not because of the cost, because of the lack of visual
Absolutely.
obstruction.
There is very little visual obstruction.
Okay,
That's
so
the key.
Is that going to be accepted and passed in the next few years?
I think in the coming years they will accept that in congruence with an edge cover. And the reason I say that is because basically the requirement within the CGSB is that the edge be covered, but also there be a connection between glass panels. A cap rail covers both of those, and so that's why oftentimes they'll say it requires a cap rail, but it's not technically a cap rail you need. What you need is to cover the edge to protect it from any, maybe a glass, you're having a drink and you put your glass down too hard on the edge.
So
things like that.
So if you don't use glass connectors, but you use a cap rail, is that considered continuous?
Absolutely. So a cap rail covers both requirements. So it covers your edge cover and it covers your continuous rail between two or more panels.
Now, what about having no edge cover, but having a continuous rail that's drilled in on holes like the picture we looked at?
So that system absolutely covers that requirement.
But not the edge cover requirement.
But it doesn't cover the edge cover requirement. So in the coming years, we feel that eventually they'll start enforcing it having to cover both. Right now, they basically are at the point where they're okay with that edge being exposed, but they're starting to require very consistently some kind of connection between panels. And so either that being the handrail we saw with the off-glass brackets or with those slim connectors between panels. The vast majority of municipalities are going to accept that at this point. In the coming years, we feel that eventually they will start to harp on both points, which is part of why we brought in basically simple edge covers. They're extremely low cost, they're extremely low profile, and we end up putting them just along the edge to provide something there if someone doesn't want to use a full cap rail.
Okay, so we only have a few minutes left. We're going to go to one last subject before we wrap here. Code changes requiring tall height over 10 meters. Mm-hmm. So the requirement, I think, used to be 40. It was a metric requirement. I can't remember what it was. I think it was 1070.
Yes, 1070 millimeter. Yeah.
Okay, and that's changed as of January 1st, 2025?
Yes, so that is being updated. We don't have the full details of it yet. We're expecting them this month. but there are multiple big changes that are coming in the early part of this year. We expect to see most of them by the end of February. One of those that we know for certain is coming is an expansion of the allowable triangle in your treads. So basically, when glass kind of goes over top of your treads from nosing to nosing, it creates a triangle in the back of your tread. That used to fall under basically the part in the code that allows for no passage of a 4-inch sphere. So that's
Which was a baby's head.
exactly. And so they're expanding that, I believe.
Should your baby climb down 5 sets of stairs and then try and stick its head down?
Exactly. But I believe they're going to be adjusting that to about 7 inches, which is kind of where most of them end up at. For the longest time, it was never enforced. We never saw them happen, but here and there, someone would get their project denied for something as simple as that. When the way the glass railings work, it's near impossible to cover that triangle. And so basically what they've done is made it so that triangle can be more acceptable, and then that way there's no
You're talking about
confusion.
you're going down a set of stairs, and rather than notching the glass down,
Exactly.
we don't mind doing that. We get that request actually from so we have I would call some customers of our fabrication shop that are willing to do packaged lower quality stuff, and we don't shun if that's the decision a homeowner makes and they want to go with a product like that. Then we're not going to hinder them in any. We'll say, yeah, sure, talk to these guys. They'll sell you that lower end product, and they'll do a good job selling that lower end product. It's just we're not in that business, okay?
Absolutely.
So we do recommend people from time to time, and to meet that budget. And some of those people buy glass from us when they do more custom products, and often what they're buying from us is a parallelogram that has notches in the bottom. And of course, we have CNC machines, so we CNC that in there for them.
Yep.
You're saying that's going to go away?
Well, the requirement for it.
Okay,
will
not
kind of
aesthetically go away, but
exactly. Some people do like that look, right? They want basically we would call that puzzle locking, right? So it's basically like you've puzzle locked that glass into the shape of your stair. So that is a popular way of doing it.
The puzzle is how to do it for the price that they want.
Exactly, yeah. It does raise your cost, right? The way that glass is built, you're basically paying for a much larger parallelogram. But it ends up increasing your cost.
I'll wrap with a very quick anecdotal story if you can tolerate one.
Absolutely.
Just to end this. Anybody who's watched this podcast to this point wants to be entertained. So here,
absolutely.
When I was in grade 6, which was basically in ancient times, right before they invented the airplane. The school I went to was very old, and it had lots of oak. The whole school was all oak. It had like 16-foot ceilings.
Okay.
Very strict teachers, who whipped and beated you if you didn't behave correctly. As different sort of era. I was stuck out in the hallway for mouthing off or whatever it is that I did.
Yeah. And the dunce cap on.
Yeah, exactly. and one of my friends was walking by one floor below me, and I stuck my hand out through the banister to wave at him, and my shoulder got stuck between the two pieces of the banister.
Holy moly!
Yeah. So back then, it wasn't a code. It wasn't because of code, but they knew that they had kids in the building, and they built appropriately.
Yeah.
And made the pieces of the banisters, which were basically just spindles.
Yeah.
Really close together to the point where I was like a 12-year-old boy, and my shoulder got stuck in between because my shoulders were like maybe a little bit larger than average. But, and I was stuck there, and the teacher called to bring me back into the class, and I never answered, and waited till the class got out, and there I was, as 30 of my fellow students walked out of the classroom looking at me, and I'm just sitting there like an idiot, 2 inches off the floor with my shoulder stuck in between the banister.
No wonder you still remember the story.
Yeah. Well, of course, back then, the custodian had, was like Popeye. He came and he spread the banister open like, he's Popeye bending a couple bars and let me out of there. But yeah, things have progressed since then. I think there's always been a desire to keep people safe. The codes will adjust and change, but in the end, you need the CBOs. Need to be smart people, and so do the designers, the product makers, the GCs, and they need to have their homeowners, best interest. Some of the homeowners don't know what ought to be done, and that's why they're paying for general contractors.
Absolutely.
And, we do have a lot of smart people in Ontario, and I'm sure we'll get the job done, and not always go to the minimum,
Yep.
which even back then, which I think my school was built in 1922,
Yeah.
they knew kids were going to be in that school, and they did not go to the minimum.
Absolutely.
So, of course, I got stuck in it.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay, thank you very much for being on the program.
absolutely.
Again, this is Brody Harrington from Euroforge Architectural Products in Vaughan. You can look him up online. He sells, especially if you're in the trade. We're in the trade, and we buy a lot of stuff from you guys because it's good quality product at a very reasonable price. And then, of course, look us up. It's accurateglassproducts.com. And we're coming to you from downtown Barrie at the Sandbox Center. We thank Cale for the editing and the work that he does behind the scenes. So, you good?
Awesome. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
That's a wrap.
All right.